Emma and Daniel, a newlywed couple from Ohio, set out on what was meant to be the perfect honeymoon in Thailand, but within days paradise turned into a nightmare, and their love story ended in a shocking murder that stunned the world. Emma and Daniel's story began in a small town in Ohio where everyone knew everyone else. The news of their whirlwind romance spread quickly. They met at a summer festival, the kind of event filled with music, food stalls, and warm air that smelled of fried dough and popcorn. Emma was with her friends when she caught Daniel's eye near the Ferris wheel. He was charismatic, quick to laugh, and carried himself with the kind of confidence that immediately drew people in. Emma, quieter and more reserved, found herself unexpectedly pulled into his orbit. Within weeks, they were inseparable. Their relationship moved at a pace that surprised many, and when Daniel proposed less than a year later, some friends raised eyebrows. But Emma didn't care about the whispers. She believed she had found her partner for life. Their wedding was small, but filled with emotion. Guests remembered the way Emma's eyes sparkled when she walked down the aisle, and how Daniel's hand trembled slightly as he slid the ring onto her finger. To them, it was the beginning of forever, a love that seemed unshakable in its intensity. While there were fleeting moments of disagreement during the preparations, they brushed them aside, eager to begin their journey as husband and wife. As the evening ended and the couple waved goodbye to their family, they spoke excitedly about their honeymoon plans. Thailand had been chosen not just for its beauty, but for the sense of adventure it promised. Neither Emma nor Daniel had traveled outside the United States before, and the idea of experiencing a culture so different from their own thrilled them both. In the days leading up to their departure, Emma filled her Instagram feed with posts about their upcoming trip. She shared snapshots of their passports, a picture of the colorful dresses she had packed, even a lighthearted video of Daniel struggling to zip his overstuffed suitcase. Friends and family flooded the comments with good wishes and heart emojis, yet behind the cheerful posts a subtle tension sometimes showed. Those closest to them noticed how quickly small disagreements could ignite. Emma's mother recalled how Daniel became easily irritated if things didn't go his way, while Emma's best friend remembered moments when Emma seemed unusually quiet around him, as though she were holding back her words. Still, these were minor concerns compared to the joy of a young couple in love, preparing for the trip of a lifetime. The day of their flight arrived, and with it came a mixture of excitement and nervous energy. They arrived at the airport early, Emma clutching her travel journal and Daniel joking with fellow passengers in line. As the plane took off, Emma stared out the window, marveling at the vast sky stretched endlessly before them. She wrote in her journal about her hopes for the journey. Days of exploring temples, nights of dining by the sea, and memories that would last a lifetime. Daniel leaned back, headphones in, sipping a drink with a satisfied grin. For him, the trip was a chance to celebrate, to let loose, to live boldly in a place where no one knew them. To anyone watching, they looked like the picture of newlywed bliss, a couple ready to begin their adventure, hand in hand. Yet underneath the smiles and laughter were shadows unnoticed, fragile cracks forming in what seemed like perfection. The honeymoon was supposed to be a dream come true, but fate had already set a darker path in motion, one that neither Emma nor Daniel could see from their airplane seats high above the clouds. When Emma and Daniel landed in Thailand, the world around them felt like a vivid painting come to life. The humid air wrapped around them as they stepped out of the airport, and the vibrant colors of the bustling streets left them wide-eyed. Tuk-tuks zipped past. Vendors called out over the clatter of cooking woks, and golden temples gleamed in the distance. Everything seemed new, overwhelming, and magical all at once. They arrived at their resort in Phuket just as the sun was dipping low on the horizon, casting the ocean in shades of orange and pink. Their room overlooked the sea, with glass doors that opened to a balcony where waves whispered against the shore. Emma immediately pulled out her phone to capture the view, while Daniel poured himself a drink from the minibar, raising his glass to toast the start of their adventure. The first few days unfolded like a dream. They spent mornings by the pool, afternoons exploring beaches, and evenings sampling Thai dishes at small restaurants tucked into narrow alleys. Emma adored the markets, where rows of colorful fabrics, handmade jewelry, and sizzling street food created a sensory overload. She carefully bought trinkets to bring back home, her eyes sparkling with excitement at every discovery. Daniel, on the other hand, was most alive in the nightlife. Bars with flashing neon lights and music spilling out into the streets pulled him in, while Emma often preferred quieter moments with her camera or journal. Still, they managed to find common ground, laughing together over spicy curries and watching lanterns float into the night sky. Yet beneath the idyllic surface, small fissures began to appear. Daniel grew impatient with Emma's constant need to take photos before meals or to pause at every stall in the market. Emma, in turn, became uneasy with how much Daniel was drinking each night. On one occasion, he returned to their room well past midnight, stumbling and slurring his words, while Emma sat awake, staring at the clock with worry etched across her face. By morning, he brushed it off with a carefree smile, insisting he was simply enjoying himself. Emma forced a smile in return, but unease settled deeper inside her. The staff at the resort began to notice the fluctuations in the couple's moods. One day they would see Emma and Daniel holding hands by the pool, giggling as though they were still back at their wedding reception. The next, there would be silence between them, with Emma sitting alone at breakfast while Daniel scrolled through his phone, barely acknowledging her presence. It wasn't unusual for newlyweds to face adjustments, but there was something sharper in the tension that flickered between them. Still, they pressed forward with their itinerary. They visited Buddhist temples, where Emma marveled at the golden statues, and lit incense sticks with quiet reverence. They took a boat tour to the Phi Islands, where Daniel dove eagerly into the turquoise water while Emma lingered on the deck, gazing out at the jagged cliffs that rose dramatically from the sea. At night, the contrast grew stronger. Emma writing in her journal on the balcony under the stars, Daniel disappearing into the pulsing energy of the bars. For the most part, they managed to mask the growing cracks in their happiness. Photos uploaded to social media painted the picture of a perfect honeymoon Nima in a flowing dress against the backdrop of a temple, Daniel grinning with a cocktail in hand. Family and friends back home commented on how beautiful everything looked, how lucky they were, how wonderful it must be. But the glossy images told only part of the story. Behind the camera, something fragile was beginning to fracture, a quiet unraveling that would soon reach its breaking point. By the fifth night of their trip, the dreamlike glow of Thailand had begun to lose its luster. Emma wanted nothing more than a quiet evening, a simple dinner by the water, and a chance to rest after days of sightseeing. Daniel, however, had other plans. He insisted they explore Patong, the city's famous nightlife hub, a place alive with flashing neon signs, pounding music, and crowded streets where tourists mingled with locals in a haze of alcohol and energy. Reluctantly, Emma agreed, knowing how much Daniel enjoyed the chaos. The streets of Patong were overwhelming, filled with the smell of grilled seafood, the constant hum of motorbikes, and the laughter of revelers spilling from bars and clubs. Daniel was instantly in his element, weaving through the crowd with a drink in hand, greeting strangers as if they were old friends. Emma followed closely, her unease growing with every passing moment. The flashing lights and pulsing music felt suffocating, and she kept glancing at her watch, silently wishing to return to the calm of the resort. As the night wore on, Daniel's drinking escalated. He downed shot after shot, his laughter louder, his steps unsteady. Emma tried to remain patient, standing quietly in the corner of a crowded bar while Daniel leaned across the counter, animatedly talking to a group of strangers. Onlookers later recalled how out of place she seemed, her posture stiff and her eyes fixed on the floor while Daniel reveled in the noise. Eventually, frustration overcame her, and she signaled to him that it was time to leave. What began as a small gesture sparked an argument that spilled out onto the street. Witnesses remembered seeing them near the entrance of a nightclub, Emma's face tight with anger, Daniel's voice raised and sharp. Although no one could hear the words exchanged, the tension was unmistakable. One person later told investigators that Daniel's gestures grew increasingly aggressive, his hands moving in exaggerated motions while Emma stood rigid, her arms crossed as if bracing herself against a storm. The argument ended abruptly when they began walking toward the resort, Daniel striding ahead while Emma trailed behind, her expression weary. Security cameras captured the pair entering a side street that led in the direction of their hotel. That grainy footage would later become the last public record of them together. Back at the resort, the atmosphere was markedly different. Staff who passed the couple in the hallway recalled sensing unease. Daniel's face appeared tense, while Emma avoided eye contact, her body stiff as though weighed down by something unseen. Guests staying nearby would later tell authorities that they heard muffled noises coming from the room-raised voices. the sound of furniture scraping across the floor, and what seemed like hurried footsteps. The noises eventually faded, replaced by silence. The following morning, only Daniel was seen. He came down to the lobby looking disheveled, his eyes bloodshot, claiming Emma had gone for a walk along the beach at dawn and had not returned. Hours passed with no sign of her. Concerned staff offered to assist, but Daniel dismissed their worry, insisting she needed space and would be back soon. As the day stretched into evening, however, anxiety grew. Emma had left behind her phone, her passport, and even her shoes. Something was deeply wrong, and the staff finally alerted local authorities. What had started as a night of revelry and patong had now turned into the beginning of a nightmare. The honeymoon trip was unraveling into a mystery that no one at the resort could ignore. Emma was missing, and the question that haunted everyone was simple yet terrifying. Where had she gone after that last argument, and why had she never come back? The disappearance of Emma quickly escalated from a matter of concern to a full-scale investigation. Local police arrived at the resort, questioning staff and guests about what they had seen the night before. The first red flag was Daniel's account. He told investigators that Emma had woken early and gone for a walk along the shoreline, perhaps to clear her mind. Yet when police checked security footage from the resort, no cameras showed Emma leaving. Her belongings remained untouched in the room, her shoes lined neatly by the bed, her passport tucked away in the safe, and her phone left on the nightstand. For a woman in a foreign country, walking off without essentials seemed unlikely. Suspicion began to grow. Search teams were dispatched to comb the nearby beaches and streets. Volunteers joined officers, calling Emma's name as they scoured the coastline. Flyers with her photo were printed and distributed, her smiling face plastered across markets and bus stops. But as hours stretched into days, no sign of Emma emerged. The only constant in the unfolding chaos was Daniel, who alternated between appearing distraught and oddly detached. He gave repeated statements, but each time small inconsistencies emerged. At first, he claimed Emma had left at sunrise. Later, he adjusted the time, suggesting she might have gone out while it was still dark. His shifting story made investigators uneasy. 2 days later, the case took a grim turn. A fisherman working along the coast spotted something unusual bobbing in the waves. It was a large suitcase, waterlogged and battered by the tide. Struggling, he hauled it onto his small boat, only to recoil in horror at the heavy stench seeping from inside. Police were called immediately, and the suitcase was brought ashore under heavy guard. When authorities unzipped it, the discovery sent shockwaves across Thailand and would later dominate headlines around the world. Inside, beneath layers of Emma's clothing, was a body wrapped tightly in plastic. The victim was soon identified as Emma. The revelation shattered any lingering hope that she might be found alive. Forensic teams moved quickly, analyzing every detail of the suitcase and its contents. Her injuries suggested a violent struggle, one that had ended fatally before she was stuffed inside the luggage. Marks on her wrists indicated she had tried to defend herself. Evidence pointed to the hotel room as the place where it had happened. Blood traces invisible to the naked eye were found on the carpet and bathroom. Tiles of the suite she had shared with Daniel. Daniel was taken into custody soon after, his composure crumbling under the weight of mounting evidence. While he initially protested his innocence, insisting Emma had been targeted by someone else, the facts painted a different picture. Witnesses had seen the couple arguing outside the nightclub. Surveillance footage confirmed they had returned together, and no one had seen Emma alive again after that. The suitcase, traced back to a luggage set purchased by Daniel in Ohio, sealed the case further. What began as a honeymoon was now a homicide investigation. The idyllic beaches of Phuket, once filled with laughter and sunsets for the couple, had turned into the backdrop of a crime scene. Emma's body, silenced and hidden in a suitcase, told a story of betrayal and violence far darker than anyone back home in Ohio could have imagined. The search for a missing newlywed had ended in tragedy, and attention now turned to uncovering the truth of what really happened inside that resort room. The courtroom in Phuket was filled with a heavy silence as Daniel was led in, shackled and pale. News of Emma's death had spread across international headlines, and the tragic case of the Ohio newlyweds captured the attention of people far beyond Thailand. Cameras flashed outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions, and Emma's grieving family sat together in the front row, their faces etched with sorrow. They had flown across the world to seek justice for their daughter, and every detail of the trial cut into them like a blade. Prosecutors laid out the chilling evidence piece by piece. Forensic experts testified that Emma's injuries pointed to a violent altercation inside the hotel room. Bruises on her arms and neck revealed she had been overpowered, and DNA under her fingernails suggested she had fought back desperately. The blood traces found in the bathroom matched her profile exactly. The suitcase where her body was discovered was proven to belong to Daniel, and fibers from the hotel carpet were embedded in the lining. Each fact dismantled his earlier claims that Emma had vanished during an early morning walk. Witness statements only added to the growing weight against him. Tourists recall the argument outside the nightclub. Describing Daniel's angry gestures and Emma's distressed expression, resort staff testified about overhearing raised voices from the couple's room and noticing Daniel's suspicious behavior the following morning. A fisherman's haunting account of finding the suitcase sealed the narrative of how Emma's life had been brutally cut short. As the trial progressed, Daniel's defense weakened. He had initially denied involvement, portraying himself as a devastated husband. But under pressure, his story shifted. Quote, eventually, a partial confession emerged. He admitted the couple had argued fiercely that night after leaving the nightclub. Fueled by alcohol and frustration, he claimed he lost control in a moment of rage. He tried to frame it as an accident, insisting he never intended to kill her. But the evidence told a harsher truth. The calculated attempt to hide Emma's body inside a suitcase and dispose of it in the ocean pointed to deliberate choices, not a single mistake. Emma's family listened to every word, their pain visible in the courtroom. Her mother clutched a framed photo of Emma in her wedding dress, a reminder of the joy that had existed just weeks before tragedy struck. Her father's jaw tightened as prosecutors described how Daniel attempted to erase Emma's existence by sinking her to the sea. For them, there was no closure, only the haunting reality of what had been stolen. The verdict came after weeks of testimony. The judge delivered a life sentence for Daniel, citing the brutality of the crime and the betrayal of trust it represented. The sentence ensured he would spend the rest of his days behind bars in a foreign prison. Far from the Ohio hometown, where he once imagined building a future with Emma, the case left a scar not only on Emma's family, but also on all who followed the story. It became a cautionary tale told in news reports, documentaries, and conversations about love, violence, the danger hidden behind perfect smiles on social media. Emma's dream of a honeymoon filled with laughter and discovery had been stolen, replaced by a legacy of sorrow and warning. Her story stood as a reminder of how quickly joy can unravel into horror, how the darkest secrets can emerge in the most unexpected places.